It is hour 2. It is time to pick up the pace of the stories that we have been bringing you on this day. And we begin, of course, with number 1. Many of you have been following this with us. I've been reading your tweets, your emails. We've been tracking the story here since it first broke last night. Today, another man, a third person, has stepped forward and accused this megachurch pastor of coercing him as well into a sexual relationship as a young man. Last night, I first reported on lawsuits brought by 2 other young men who say that it was coercion that began when they were just teenagers for sex. At the center of the allegation, this man right there, that's Bishop Eddie Long. He heads a huge megachurch here in Atlanta. He has 25,000 followers. He has his own TV show. He is a best-selling author. He has taken a very, very public stance against homosexuality. And joining me now to discuss the new allegations and the power of this megachurch is CNN's Ed Lavandera. Ed, you've been following this all throughout the course of the day yesterday. I know you had the information even before you reported it, and now today you come again with a new complaint that apparently has been filed. What is it?
We had been told this is the 3rd lawsuit that was filed, and we've confirmed it has been filed this afternoon. We're still waiting to hear back any kind of response from Eddie Long's folks. Can't imagine it would be any different from what we've heard on the first 2. You know, they've said they adamantly deny these accusations, but this one is filed by a 23-year-old former church member by the name of Jamal Paris, who now lives in Colorado. So this is the 3rd one. And the other big news that we've gotten here late this afternoon is that Bishop Eddie Long is going to speak out tomorrow.
Tomorrow, though.
So
why tomorrow? I mean, you know, if people are saying really horrible, horrible things about you yesterday or today, why are you speaking tomorrow?
Yeah, that would, you know, although...
Well, let me ask you that.
People want to hear from him.
Let me ask
his church members desperately want to hear from him.
That's not a fair question to even ask you, so I apologize for it. Let me ask you a question I'm supposed to ask you as a reporter. When you have contacted them, and I know you have many times, our people, your people who've been working on this story, what have they told you? Why the silence?
Well, they've been pretty cautious so far. They've told us, look, this latest one, they haven't even had they tell us they haven't even had a chance to read it yet. So we're essentially made them aware of it just a little while ago. So they're still probably trying to, his lawyers probably still trying to process it, figure out, you know, exactly what's in here, start figuring out a legal strategy.
The other 2 stories that you brought us yesterday, these 2 complaints, are young men who felt they were vulnerable. One of them didn't have a father. One of them, their parent suggested they talk to the minister. They tell very similar stories of being taken advantage of. They bought them cars. The minister bought them cars. The minister bought them jewelry, they say. One of them was put in a house that was paid for with the minister's or the church's money. All of these things. Is this accusation that you're bringing us now similar to that one?
Very similar. You know, talks about in 2001, Jamal Paris, he had 14 years old, had kind of become a member of this church. That's when they had met. And then later on, about when he was 17, things, according to this latest lawsuit, started changing. The relationship started changing.
Sexual relations?
Exactly. Started building up from there, meetings in his office and that sort of thing. And at one point here, it says, defendant Long, Bishop Long, accompanied the plaintiff, took again back to this idea of, you know, the trips, the lavish trips that the bishop would take with these young men. It says here that Bishop Long had taken Jamal Paris to Dallas, Houston, New York, Los Angeles, Orlando, Charlotte, Miami, San Francisco,
in his private jet,
New Jersey, Honduras, Nassau, Bahamas, Charleston, Trinidad, Chicago, and Arkansas. It's a long list of trips that they allege that this young man had taken with the bishop.
This is a tough question to ask, but the bishop is married and he has children, right? Have we heard anything from the family or nothing?
Nothing so far. Nothing so far.
I want to stay here. I want you to help me with this. Jonathan Walton is joining us now. He's an assistant professor at the Harvard Divinity School, and he's the author of a book called Watch This, The Ethics and Aesthetics of Black Televangelism. Interesting title for a book. Let me just cut to the chase with my first question. Eddie's going to jump in here in just a minute. When people see their pastor, many would ask, driving a Bentley, which last time I checked, I couldn't even imagine, but I think it's something like $300,000-$400,000 car. When they see him only flying in private planes, when they see him wearing Rolexes, when they see him only wearing $4,000 or $5,000 suits, why does that congregation continue to grow? And should that not be the first sign that there's something wrong here? Explain that to the rest of us who have a real tough time understanding this.
Well, in this kind of evangelical subculture, where megachurches are largely based upon the charismatic personality of the pastor, in some ways it makes sense. Because for many congregants, these are real, live, breathing celebrities that they can touch, that they can have what seems to be close relationships with. And so thus they celebrate the fact that their pastor is prosperous. And also, in some ways, it kind of mimics the larger corporate culture of a Donald Trump and Jack Welch. So you have church members that would say, well, if CEOs can drive and live and have expensive flights, why can't pastors?
I got to stop you and ask you this question only because, and pardon me for, I'm using my own life experience. I'm Catholic, and
no.
Maybe that just makes me really different. I don't understand. But when I think of St. Francis of Assisi, when I think of the teachings of Jesus Christ, when I read my Bible, when I think of the things that I've been taught, what the hell does a rich businessman have to do with God? What? Those are two of the furthest things that can.
No, absolutely.
Explain it to me.
Well, I could add one to the list. I mean, Bishop Long has declared himself the kind of spiritual successor to Martin Luther King Jr. And during the 1960s, when Martin Luther King Jr. was making about $200,000 in speaking fees, he would only accept a salary of $1 a year, right? So there's absolutely examples counter to this, right? So what I was just trying to explain is the reason, to answer your question, is the reason why many church members in this particular subculture of evangelicalism, why they embrace this sort of kind of flashy, prosperous lifestyle, because it's very consistent with the theology that is preached and proclaimed, that God wants one to be blessed and prospered as one's soul is blessed and prospered. And that means materially, financially healthy, everything.
Hey, Jonathan, this is Ed Lavendera. We spoke yesterday. One of the things that they talk about in this lawsuit is that it was the bishop's spiritual authority that essentially convinced these young men to let him become his spiritual father. I think for a lot of people who are reading this, who say, look, these are men who are of age, legally, able to consent to these sexual relationships. What is it about Bishop Long that would make him able to convince these young men, if indeed this is true, of kind of going down this path?
Well, one of the things that Bishop Long has largely constructed his ministry upon is this kind of Protestant tradition of muscular Christianity, where it's kind of rejecting what's seen as an effeminized Christianity, but it's really about Christian church for men's men, for being a man, right? That's why we see the fancy cars, the economic success, the skin-tight shirts, and the modeling of the physique that Eddie Long loves. And it kind of sets up this paradigm in many congregations where the pastor becomes modeled as the man all the women want and all the men want to be. And so it makes sense in many ways that young men would find this attractive and see him as a mentor and something to aspire to.
Let me ask you a very difficult question. Can the parishioners of this church be accused of enabling this pastor or others out there who might fall prey to these kinds of things?
Well, I want to be careful because I don't want to put any blame on parishioners, and particularly they had nothing to do with these charges, in particular if these allegations prove to be true. So we don't want to put blame there. Right. But I would say that there's a kind of a larger cultural of entitlement and celebrity culture in American society. So whether we're talking about MTV Cribs, whether we're talking about fascination with Donald Trump and CEOs, or these fascination with megachurch pastors and athletes, I think it's consistent across the board. So there's a lot of blame in American culture to go around in that regard.
Would you advise parishioners of churches or any denominations to love the pastor for what's in their heart and what's in their words and not necessarily what they drive or what's in their wallet?
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, I think that you hit it on the head in citing St. Francis of Assisi earlier, as well as so many other spiritual men and women, that their spirituality was not defined by their material prosperity or success. I mean, Benjamin Elijah Mays, former president of Morehouse College, said that preachers should be measured by their service to humanity, not the wheelbase of their Cadillacs.
Wow. Jonathan Walton, what an interesting person you are. What a great book you've written. What interesting information you share, and especially at this particular time. Let's do this again. Let's have another conversation. My thanks to you, and of course my